The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
All right, wrestling fans, welcome back to another episode of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. News, reviews, previews, and interviews from in and around the sport of wrestling. Since the season's here, a lot of the focus of Short Time is on the Short Time Shots, which is part of this feed. It's also its own feed, which you can find at mattalkonline.com. Today, though, we are looking at Penn State Media Day. The following audio was provided by Pat Dongai and the Penn State Media Relations Office. So this is the full audio. I don't really have anything to add other than if you haven't heard it, here it is, and I have to give courtesy of Penn State Athletics. So, as always, I'd like to thank you for spending your time with me because you've always got time for Short Time. Now we go to State College, Penn State Media Day.
That's it. All right. Cael, you have an opening statement or you just want to go ahead and have that?
Yeah, let's just any questions. Go ahead.
Cael, what are your thoughts on the Offseason training program, and did anybody in particular make any good gains you're excited about?
Well, I think we had a lot of guys work really hard this offseason. I think that'll show, right? As we start competing, we'll see who really made the gains. So I'd rather just kind of wait and, let their actions show you that. But, we've had a lot of guys training year round. I mean, that's just part of the sport now. We have different rules in wrestling where, you can be in the wrestling room all the time, and a lot of our guys are. So hopefully that shows as the season starts. I think it will. But I know we're excited to get the season going and just find out where we are so we can start making some progress.
When were you guys first approached by Kyle Conel? What was that process like bringing him into the fold?
Well, Kyle, you're making me think back a ways. So he came in, he started visiting different schools. It was during the season. I know when he came on his official visit, it was he came and watched one of our matches. He came with his family. He decided that this is where he wanted to go. He got into a 1-year graduate program in business, which is seems like a pretty good deal, and he's excited about that. Doing really well, and then obviously we're excited to have him in the program. He's a really just a good kid, always big smile, and I think we'll have a lot of fun with him this year.
Other than his wrestling talent, what else do you guys gain by bringing in somebody at that stage in their career who's kind of been around and had some experience elsewhere?
Well, he's obviously a really good wrestler, right? He took third in the country a couple years ago, and everyone remembers him obviously from Penn State because he had some big matches that helped our team out. But he also went into that tournament unseeded also, right? So, our goal is just help him just with his weight and just being more consistent and hopefully jumping a level. But again, that's going to be up to him. But we're excited. I think he'll be a lot of fun to watch wrestle. He's a competitor.
Last year, you guys had to only really replace a guy like Zane. This year, replacing Jason and Bo. How difficult is that to do to replace two such guys like that scored all those points for you last year?
Well, yeah, Bo and Jason were they're special, right? I mean, they're two guys that are as good as anybody that's ever stepped on a college wrestling mat, and so they had just an unbelievable run, right? Individually and as a team for 4 years there. And, we're happy for them. They're moving on and, they have Olympic aspirations and looking ahead now. We're not trying to replace them. You can't really replace guys like that. It's just, finding and building up the next wave. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, how's Brady Berge and is he ready to go for Sunday?
That's questionable right now. I would guess probably not. I would guess we're probably not going to wrestle on Sunday. I mean, you guys heard it wasn't quite as bad as I think. I was over there with them, but I was getting questions from Pat. There are some crazy rumors out there, but yeah, I mean, you saw the video. He took a knee or something. It's not really clear into the head and was unconscious for a little bit. So I mean, obviously that's got to take that very seriously. But he's doing well now.
If he were healthy, would he still be able to wrestle because of the descent program?
Yeah. The freestyle doesn't play into the to the descent plan, even though he wrestled up, right? I mean, it's a different sport per se, but yeah, he'd be ready to go.
Cael, back to fifth place finishers now for Nick Lee. How has he improved, and what do you think he needs to do to finally get over that hump?
Well, I think Nick has jumped another level. I think, again, it's up to him to show that. But one of those extremely consistent kids, I think as a freshman, he wrestled, he probably surprised a few people and had just an unbelievable tournament to take fifth. And I think last year he was disappointed with fifth, so he was better last year. Obviously, had some great wins and, just a fierce competitor in his career, at the Nationals with a fall. But, that's the name of the game, is just to keep improving. And I think he has, but, we'll see as we get going here.
Who stepped up as leaders for this team this year?
Well, we're not a team that designate captains or anything like that. We kind of something that happens naturally. I think the seniors are trying to be leaders. I think Nick Lee's a leader. I think the kids that are the most consistent are going to be your best leaders, right? I mean, as a coaching staff, we try to be consistent in what we're doing and saying, and the energy that we're bringing to the room every day, and the vision. It's those kids that are the most consistent. I know Mark's Hall's trying to taking that role on a little bit, and a lot of that will really start to form as we start competing here as well, right? Because consistency is not just in practice; it's also entering the competition and with the same passion and energy that you have year round, right? I mean, it's just, again, being consistent and setting the example and how we want to compete. What does Penn State wrestling stand for, right? I mean, we want it to be a team that wrestles freely, that's looking to score points, right? Having a good time. We're not afraid to make mistakes. We're not afraid to lose, right? We hate losing, but we're not afraid of it. And just kind of having, that mentality, the kids that step up with that attitude, they're the ones that will be our leaders. Yeah.
You talked about how you're not afraid to lose, but that you hate it. Last year after NCAAs with Mark and Vincenzo, what was that like? How did you kind of help console them and help them kind of keep faith and stay committed to the process? Well,
I think as painful as losing is, it can often be a great blessing for you, right? It's painful, but you can learn from it. How can you learn from it? One thing you can learn is that it's not the end of the world either, right? So if you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, to win in a sporting event, it's kind of having that eternal reference. It's really not, it's important enough to do your best and to be committed and all in, but it's not so important that we should be scared of that, right? You got to be motivated by an opportunity, not scared by it. And I think, Vincenzo and Mark, they had some tough losses, and I think they both wrestled fairly well, controversial match, in the one. But you move forward, right? And you get better and you figure it out. And we'll see this year. Hopefully they can wrestle with, consistent fire and finish strong.
Take us through what the lineup kind of is looking like right now heading into the first duel.
Well, I think, just looking at at the lineup, you guys have a pretty good idea. We have with 3 potential 6-year guys. It's outside of Bo and Jason, things don't change a whole lot, right? We have some new kids fighting for a few of those spots, right? So 25s, open again, 49s, open again, so, those are 2 of the more, competitive weight classes that kids on our team are fighting for. But outside of that, things are kind of set, right? So, not a lot of variation. I think this year being an Olympic year, you're going to see, a number of different teams that we put out there, just trying to be creative and give our guys the best chance, to not only be successful in the NCAA tournament, but also with the Olympic trials that'll be back here 2 weeks later. right? So, the plan and what they're doing will be important in that process. So,
Who has stuck out at those two overweight guys, 25 and 49?
It's the same guys. Right? I mean, you got Schnupp, right? He's been there a few years. Teskey's in there. Meredith just had a nice open tournament last weekend. 49 for Claren, right? You got Bo Pfeiffer, right? You got Luke Gardner. So, guys that have a lot of experience, that have, we're just looking for the kid that's going to compete, on Sunday or Friday, whenever the match happens to be, that can compete with those qualities that I mentioned before, just wrestling with some enthusiasm, right? Not so much, we want to win. Obviously, everyone wants to win. That's probably the most common thing, right? But it's more about how do we compete? That's what we're looking for. We want the guys that are going to compete with the right attitude, and in the long run, that's going to give them and us our best result.
You were talking about different teams. It's like Spencer Lee is supposed to go like 11 matches this year. They said, is anything similar that could happen like that here?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we have several guys that, have the opportunity to, or a legitimate chance of qualifying for the trials and competing for the team. So, those guys, we'll look at the season a little differently for them individually and what's in their best interest. At the same time, trying to manage our team and being ready for our dual meets and trying to give the team, a chance to be successful at the same time.
Cael, for those guys who do have those Olympic and NCAA aspirations, what would you say is the best, the benefit of wrestling in the NCAA season as opposed to taking a full Olympic red shirt?
Well, I'm not here to say, which way is better or worse. I think I'm confident, just based on history, that running through the NCAA season can be a blessing, right? You see several guys in the last few cycles alone that come off an NCAA season and they make a world team and win medals, right? They're going to be in great shape, right? It's a different style of wrestling. You're not going to be probably traveling the world as much, but you can get better and be prepared going through an NCAA season, especially like in a program like ours, or the ones that have most of them have RTCs, but you're going to be training with elite level, Olympic level athletes on a regular basis also. So, but there would be some benefits to taking an Olympic year as well. We don't have anybody doing that. Well, we have Manville. Manville's taking Olympic year, especially in Greco. We have some Greco guys here, but it's certainly not our specialty. I mean, back in '94, Casey, I think he took 8th place in the Cadet Nationals. He tells us about it all the time, but he actually may have won. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But so he's a guy that needs to go spend time at the training center, being around Greco all the time. And so that's something that he's doing, and it makes sense for him. I think it's important for him to take that Olympic year as a Greco wrestler. Freestyle, folk style, it's especially now with the rules and the emphasis on a takedown being worth more points, and the push out being more similar to freestyle. It's not as critical. And history would show that kids do really well after an NCAA season.
Cael, in the past, you have said that you would prefer that true freshman redshirt. You've got a pretty special class coming in. Do you anticipate redshirting that entire class, or is it a case-by-case basis?
You talk, this year, yes, well, it just has to make sense. And if you have a kid, we weren't expecting, or we weren't sure whether Shakur Rasheed would be back. Right. He is. So it makes sense to redshirt an Aaron Brooks when we feel like Aaron Brooks would be a title contender right now, right? But just for the sake of Shaq, and obviously we feel like Shaq is also a title contender. But it just depends on the weight class, the situation of your team, where you're at. I think any of our red shirts would be willing to go and excited to compete if the circumstances were, changed or different. But it just makes sense for our team right now to redshirt them, and it's up to them to really take advantage of that year and get ready for next year. But yeah, we have a nice group of kids redshirting this year for sure.
How big is it that Shaq and Cassar are back for you guys?
Well, I think it's big. I think, they're two guys that, hopefully they can, be leaders as far as, the qualities that we talked about before, and they have been. I mean, Cassar is extremely committed, to everything that he does. And I think that's why we saw him and everyone saw him really jump levels over the last couple of years. And I think he's jumped another level. He's just because he's every day is about doing the right thing for his training. He's cutting 0 corners, and he's working really hard. I mean, he's moving enough weight around in the weight room. It makes me uncomfortable, but he's just working hard, I mean, that's what it takes. It takes hard work, and, it's been fun to watch him. So, he's been a great example. And Shaq, as you know, he had, he tore his ACL, mid-year last year. And so he had surgery after the Nationals. And so he's been, bringing that back to full speed and has been doing a nice job getting that back.
I know you guys probably weren't surprised with Cassar last year, but do you think some opposing coaches maybe were? And do you think based on the fact that the game's kind of out of him now, will opponents kind of approach him differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll find out, right? We'll find out. I mean, Cassar's always looking ahead, right? I mean, his goal is to win the Olympics this year. And, I mean, that's what he's working towards now. And, the NCAA tournament is part of the training process to getting to that point. But he's not a guy that's trying to be as good as he was last year, right? He's trying to get better and his work is he was working hard last year, but he hasn't slowed in any way at all. So, and what our opposing coaches do, he's a tough one to scout just because he can score, the more you wrestle, the more dangerous he gets almost, so, but if he needs to go score, he can go score.
What's he squatting? What's he cleaning? What's he pressing?
I don't know, more than me, which is 0. So no, he's just, he's just working really hard. I don't want to talk about his, how much weight he's lifting or anything like that. But I mean, he's just a kid who's a great example. He's on a very strict and disciplined routine that he follows to the T.
2-part question.
Yep.
You've had some local guys in your lineup before. You have one this year, very local kid in Baylor Shuck in Penns Valley.
Yeah.
How difficult is it as you as a coach is to get that local guy into the lineup? And then what have you seen out of Baylor so far since he's come in?
Well, Baylor's he's a really good kid and he works really hard. And he competed last weekend. I think he went 2-2. But he competed, he just wrestles hard. He's going to be good. He's one of those kids that bring a lot of value to the room. And, I don't pick favorites, this or that. I mean, it's up to the kids to try to, figure out who's going to be the starter and who's going to break the lineup. And we don't want kids that just want to be on the team. And I can tell you, Baylor he's not here to be on the team. He wants to be successful. So just through hard work and the right mindset and continuous growth, love to see him be the guy at some point. I mean, I'd say the same thing about anyone on our team, right? If they're willing to pay the price and compete with some passion and some fire, then let's go.
First season that Vincenzo would be returning where he's not national champion, obviously. What was his response to that like, and what's his training regimen been like over the offseason?
I think he's been more disciplined this offseason. I think his just across the board, I think he's not a guy that would say it, but I think that obviously he does not like to lose. He wouldn't be as successful as he has been. But I think he wants to finish at the top just like everyone else, and he's obviously a great wrestler. There's some great guys in the weight, just like every year. So, it's going to be very simply, we get to the Nationals, who's going to score the most points, this or that. But I think he's putting himself in a position to be a better version of himself. But we'll see as we get going here.
maybe coming in Sunday, big rival here just before your time, and do you look forward to competing with them again? And is it a home and home?
It's a good question. I don't think it's a maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it's a home and home. I'm still. Pat told me it was media day about an hour ago, so I'm living kind of in the moment here. But yeah, we're really excited for them to come in. You know, anytime you have a group, a military team, you know the kids are tough, right? I mean, they're making the ultimate sacrifice, in what they're choosing to do for a career. So we have all the respect in the world for them as individuals and competitors, and we expect them to come in here and wrestle hard. So we better be ready to go.
Yeah, when you look at some of the weight classes across the country, whether it's 41 with Yanni or some of the other weights where guys are taking Olympic red shirts, for the guys in your lineup, are they cognizant of that, or do you tell them just focus on what's going on here?
Oh, well, you can focus on, you got to focus on yourself. What can you control? Whether somebody's taking an Olympic red shirt year or not, there's going to be somebody else, right? So, there's still going to be 32 or 33 in the bracket or however many. I hope that's close to the right number, or I sound like a meathead. So, but it doesn't really change, who's in there or who's not. It shouldn't really affect how you're training or what you're trying to do. So we're not too concerned about those kind of things.
And, with the Olympic trials at the BJC, since, Penn State is such a wrestling hotbed, how do you think it helps grow the sport that they're here as opposed to somewhere else?
Well, I think, like we've seen over, the last, 10 years or so, when they started putting national tournaments and big events in the East, they've gotten a really good turnout. They've gotten a great turnout, right? The last year was probably the most difficult NCAA ticket to get to date, being in Pittsburgh, right? And I've said this a few times, but the first time as a college coach that I remember, it was actually difficult to get a ticket to the national tournament. Even though it's always, they always report that it's a sellout, which it is, but the way they do it is a little different. But was Philadelphia in 2011. That was a difficult ticket to get. In Ohio last year, it was a difficult ticket to get. So I think just showing that the wrestling is bigger than just a few states, right? It's bigger than just the Midwest, as we know, and that it's great for the sport. It's great that a big school like Penn State is successful. It's great, for schools that are on the East that are doing really well. Ohio State, obviously, them being as strong as they are, has been great for the sport of wrestling, and Cornell and Lehigh and all the other programs, in the East. And I think, the trials will. It's going to be an awesome event, right? It's going to be sold out. The tickets are going to be hard to get. Hopefully, you guys got them, or you guys get media passes. So that's not really but maybe. You do maybe. But I just heard you do have seating assignments, so it might be.
Oh yeah.
Outside,
but it's April.
No, I'm just kidding. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a great event. BJC is going to, Penn State's going to do an amazing job, and the competitive level it'll be probably the best it's ever been. In that there's only 6 weight classes in the Olympics, so it's going to be a great show.
World class guys in the club. Addition to Kyle Snyder now, just how valuable is that, A, for recruiting, and B, for development of your Penn State team?
Well, you want to surround yourself with the best possible people, right, that have similar philosophies and work ethics and values, and we've got some really outstanding kids that can be great examples to our college age kids. Zane and Bo and Nolf and obviously Snyder and Riley Lefevre, Josh Rodriguez. We've got some really outstanding people, and that's the first thing is just being a good example, right? In the way that they do things and see things, and we have that. So. Yeah, we're very grateful for that. We're excited to have Kyle. We're excited to help all of our guys that have Olympic aspirations, and we want to have the best training opportunity in the world. I mean, that's my job as the coach at Penn State, to do what it takes to make sure that we have that, and then it's the kids' job to take advantage of it. Right? It's not about being the best in the room; it's about being the best in the world, and that's what we're trying to create.
You mentioned potential lineup changes due to the Olympic year.
Mm-hmm.
With senior nationals and the qualifying event coming at the end of December, is that something that affected the line of the schedule? And are there specific kids you expect to attend?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at our schedule, we tried to set it up to where our guys could be successful in that event, right? I mean, what we're not going to and what we are doing is this year is unique in that we're trying to get our guys ready for the Olympic trial. So, and we have I don't know how many. I would think it probably at least. Trying to think in my head, at least 4 or 5 of them will want to compete in the trials in December, or the trials to the trials.
The NCAA is passing this rule about the student athletes being able to make money off their likeness and things like that. Do you foresee that being anything to affect the college wrestling at all, or anything like that?
I'm not sure. It just kind of depends on how it's managed, right? And what it actually, what the details are, right? I mean, it could be good for wrestling, or it could be bad for wrestling. It just depends on how it's implemented and what the final, take is. And I think that's, but the people that are looking at it and trying to make those decisions, I think they're fully aware of, the possibilities and the potential negative aspects of it. And also the positives, right? I mean, it makes sense, to a degree, but it could get a little crazy too if there aren't rules and regulations to an extent, So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's an exciting time in the world and in college athletics, and we'll see what happens and try to get ahead of the game.
What about your opinion on wrestling in a football stadium for nationals?
Well, I don't know. We'll see the setup and how it looks. I mean, that's a big arena. I'm not sure. I'm sure they're going to try to set it up to where you're not too far from the mat, right? Because you don't want to have to take your binoculars or you might as well just watch it on ESPN, right? But we'll see how they set it up. I think if you had it in Beaver Stadium, which that might be a good idea at one point, but you'd probably put it down in the, on one end, right? Kind of like Iowa did with I think that's what they did with their match that looked like it worked pretty darn good. I'm not sure what the plan is. But if they ask me, I'll give them my opinion, I guess. I don't think they're going to ask me.
Is it an easy decision to go back to the Garden for a dual meet next year?
Go back to the Garden?
Well, I mean, you were there for the Nationals, but next season, Rutgers to the Garden.
Oh, is that something that's happening, or are you?
I guess you get that.
Oh, yeah, that's fine with me. I don't, it's there. If it's their dual meet, they can put it wherever they want. If we have a dual meet, we're hosting it right here, right? It's either going to be the BJC or Rec Hall because this is where we compete. But yeah, if Rutgers is hosting and they want it in Madison Square Garden, that'd be awesome. That'd be great. We love that. That was one of my favorite locations just because it was so convenient. Yeah, it's not convenient when you're paying your hotel bill or getting into the town, or the city. But as far as just walking back and forth, you leave the arena and you just got absorbed by the city, right? There were plenty of places to eat, and it was great. I really enjoyed Madison Square Garden for the Nationals. Hopefully they take it back there at some point.
Cal, what do you expect from all?
Well, being a senior and just an awesome wrestler and just a good dude, I just hope that he just goes out and wrestles with some fire, and wrestles to score points and is trying to get better, right? I mean, this would be his last year of folk style wrestling before he jumps into freestyle, full time, which I think he'll have a really successful career because he's really good. But we just hope we just like to see him finish the way he wants to finish, right? Of course, that's his job to do that, but I think he will.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, Cal.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Sportswear. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. Hey, you know what? Did you like the show? You want to hit that subscribe button, MadTalkOnline.com/listen. Various different ways to subscribe to this show on your favorite podcatcher of choice. And if you're already subscribed and you already listen and you love the show and you want to support this show and this network, MadTalkOnline.com/join the team. Become a team member today.